left to die by her people, saved by a human carrying her destiny. Liara's claws dug into the rocky surface of the cliff as the wind howled around her. Jagged mountains stretched across the horizon, casting long shadows under the pale light of the planet's twin suns. The air was thin and bitterly cold, and every breath felt like fire in her lungs. She had been trained all her life for moments like this, or so she had thought, but nothing had prepared her for being abandoned. Her people, the Valari, were proud, disciplined, and ruthless in their hierarchy. Strength was everything. Any sign of weakness, no matter how small, could mean death, or worse, exile. Liara's rare genetic condition had made her slower in reflexes than her peers and more vulnerable to extreme climates. It was a secret she had tried to hide for years, but her superiors had discovered it during the Council's annual trials. And now she understood their verdict. They had left her here, alone, on this desolate planet, as if it were a test. But she knew it was more than that. It was punishment. Liara tried to focus on survival. She scanned the rocky terrain for shelter, but the cliffs offered little protection from the storms that frequently swept across the barren land. Her stomach growled. She had eaten nothing since she had been left. Her energy was fading, and every step was heavier than the last. But giving up was not an option. Not yet. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the valley below. Liara froze. Her violet eyes widened as she spotted a creature moving through the shadows. It was massive, its form barely visible, but she could see the faint shimmer of scales along its back. She had read about these predators in the planet's survival manuals, but seeing one in person was terrifying. Her mind raced. She could climb higher and risk the thin ledges breaking beneath her, or she could run and hope to outrun the predator. She took a deep breath, recalling the survival techniques drilled into her by her instructors. Slowly, she crouched and began moving sideways along the cliff's edge, trying not to make a sound. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost meaning in this harsh world. Her muscles screamed in protest. Her lungs burned, but still she climbed. And just when she thought she might survive the night, the storm arrived. Winds lashed across the cliffs, throwing dust and shards of ice into her face. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. She stumbled, her foot slipping, and she cried out as she fell, but managed to grab a jagged outcrop at the last second. "I won't die here," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Not here. Not like this." Suddenly, through the blizzard, she noticed a faint glow in the distance. It was unlike any light she had ever seen. It pulsed softly, steady, and seemed to move closer. She squinted against the wind. At first, she thought it was another predator, perhaps an alien creature hunting her, but as it came closer, the shape of a spacecraft emerged. Her heart leapt with a mix of hope and suspicion. The Valari had warned them about humans. Weak, reckless, dangerous. And yet, standing there in the storm, she had no choice but to hope. The craft's landing was rough, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. The hatch opened, and a figure stepped out. A human. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with short brown hair and sharp, determined eyes. His uniform was scratched and worn, evidence of a life spent in space's harsh realities. Liara instinctively tensed. She had no weapons ready, and even if she did, they might not be enough. The human raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. His voice carried clearly over the howling wind. "Hey, are you hurt? Can you move?" he shouted. Liara hesitated. Pride battled desperation in her mind. Accepting help from a human felt humiliating, but the growl behind her reminded her that she didn't have a choice. I'm fine," she called back, though her voice shook. The human stepped closer, scanning her carefully. "You're not fine. You need to get off this cliff now." Before she could respond, the creature from a valley leapt. It was faster than she expected, its massive jaws snapping just inches from her. Without thinking, the human lunged forward, throwing a small device that emitted a blinding flash and a loud noise. The predator roared and recoiled, momentarily stunned. Liara stared at him, heart racing. Why did you help me?" she asked, still clinging to the cliff. He gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. "Because no one deserves to die alone. I don't know who left you here or why, but I won't let that happen." In that moment, something inside Liara shifted. The Valari had taught her that humans were weak, selfish, and chaotic, but this human was different. Brave, selfless, and surprisingly clever. With his help, Liara scrambled onto a safer ledge. He extended a hand, and after a long pause, she took it. He pulled her up with ease, his strength impressive even to someone trained like her. Once she was safe, he motioned toward the spacecraft. Inside, warmth, food, safety, he said simply. Liara glanced back at the cliffs, the storms, and the shadow of the predator, then back at him. Pride still whispered that she should refuse, that no one should save her. But survival, the raw, undeniable need to live, won. She nodded, allowing him to guide her to the ship. Inside the human spacecraft, warmth and soft lights greeted her. It smelled strange, different metals, oil, and something faintly sweet. The human moved to a console, his hands moving over controls with ease. "What's your name?" he asked without turning. "Liara," she replied quietly. "Liara," he said, nodding. "I'm Marcus Hayes. Captain, you're safe now." Liara wanted to argue, to assert herself as a warrior who could survive anything, but her body betrayed her. Exhaustion washed over her, and she sank onto a seat, grateful for the comfort. As the ship took off, leaving the storm and the predator behind, Marcus glanced at her. "Your people, they left you out there, didn't they?" Liara's jaw tightened. She said nothing, but her eyes betrayed her anger, pain, and disbelief. Marcus nodded knowingly. "I've seen it before. People abandoning the ones who are different. The strong leaving the weak. Doesn't mean you're weak, Liara. It just means they can't see your worth." His words hit her in a way she hadn't expected. For years, she had trained, studied, and fought to prove herself to the Valari, only to be discarded. And here was a human, a species she had been taught to distrust, telling her she had value. "Why, help me?" she asked after a long silence. "Because someone had to," Marcus replied simply. "And because maybe, just maybe, your survival matters more than their rules." Liara studied him. He was not like any of her people. Not arrogant, not proud, not cruel. Brave, yes, and compassionate. And perhaps it was why he had survived this long in the universe. Humans, unlike the Valari, did not let fear of weakness dictate their actions. As the ship drifted into the endless blackness of space, Liara allowed herself to relax for the first time in what felt like forever. She didn't know what awaited her, or if her people would forgive her, or even care, but at this moment, she was alive, and for the first time, she felt something else. Hope. She looked out the viewport at the distant stars, feeling a strange connection to them. Maybe she wasn't just a weak warrior, abandoned to die. Maybe she was something more, something her people could never understand. Marcus watched her, sensing her thoughts. "You'll see," he said quietly. "You're stronger than you think. And whatever your destiny is, I think it's bigger than both of us can imagine." Liara didn't reply. She just stared out at the stars, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time in her life, she realized that survival was not just about proving herself to others. It was about discovering who she truly was. And maybe, just maybe, humans were going to help her do it. The stormy cliffs, the predators, the betrayal of her own people, they were behind her now. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and adventure unlike anything she had faced. And for the first time, she was ready to face it, not as a weakling discarded by her own kind, but as someone who could survive, and perhaps even thrive, against the impossible odds of the galaxy. As the stars stretched infinitely before her, Liara felt something she had never felt on her home planet. Freedom. The spacecraft hummed softly as it glided to the dark expanse of uncharted space. Liara sat near the viewport, her long violet eyes tracing the distant stars that stretched endlessly before them. The hum of the engines, the gentle vibrations beneath her feet, and the warm, steady presence of Marcus beside her were strangely comforting after the chaos of the cliffs. She still could not believe she was alive, abandoned by her own people, left to die, and yet here she was, safe on a human ship. And yet, safety did not erase the sting of betrayal. Her mind kept replaying the moments on the cliff, the cold eyes of her superiors, the final look of dismissal before they left her behind. She had trained all her life to survive, but her people had treated her like she had no value. Marcus noticed her silence. He had spent enough time in space to read body language well. "You're thinking about them, aren't you?" he asked quietly, not looking at her. Liara's jaw tightened. "I can't stop thinking about it. They left me to die. They didn't even try to save me." Marcus finally looked at her, his expression serious. Some people can't see what's right in front of them. Weakness, strength, it's all in their eyes. That doesn't define you. You're here. You survived. That's what matters. Liara wanted to argue. In Valari culture, surviving after abandonment was not enough. It was a shame, a mark of weakness. But deep down, she knew Marcus was right. The humans' words had a strange clarity. Unlike her people, humans did not measure worth in the same rigid ways. Some of them valued courage, loyalty, and ingenuity over physical perfection. She shifted uncomfortably on the seat. "And why did you help me?" Humans don't usually care about others." Marcus leaned back, crossing his arms. "Maybe, but some of us do. I've seen too many people abandoned by their own kind to ignore it. And besides, you're not just anyone. You're Liara. I don't know why, but something tells me your survival matters. More than you realize." Liara stared at him. "What do you mean?" Marcus shrugged. "I don't know yet, but there's something about you. Something unique." She frowned, curiosity mixing with suspicion. Humans and their strange ways, always full of mysteries. But she didn't have time to ponder. The ship's sensors beeped suddenly, and Marcus' expression shifted to one of concern. "Sensor alert," he muttered, tapping the console. "We got movement ahead, multiple ships, fast approach." Liara's ears twitched. "Enemy ships?" Marcus nodded. "Possibly pirates. Could be raiders looking for easy prey. We're off the usual trade routes. They may see us as easy targets." Liara's instincts kicked in, even weakened and exhausted. She felt the old warrior rush of adrenaline. "I can help," she said. "I know tactics, ambushes, survival in hostile terrain. Maybe I can help you fight them off." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "I am," Liara replied firmly. "I may be weak by my people's standards, but I know how to survive." Marcus smiled slightly. "I like your confidence." "All right, let's see what you've got." The next hour was a blur of activity. Liara studied the approaching ships on the viewport, analyzing their movements, predicting patterns. Marcus piloted the craft, maneuvering around debris fields, using the ship's speed and agility to stay out of range. Liara suggested evasive maneuvers, and to her surprise, Marcus followed them without hesitation. Together, they became a coordinated team, human ingenuity and Valari strategy working in harmony. The enemy ships fired first, but Liara's quick thinking helped them dodge the worst of the attacks. She suggested a bold maneuver, diving through a nearby asteroid field to lose the pursuers. Marcus hesitated for a split second. It was risky, but then trusted her judgment. The ship weaved between massive rocks, engines straining, lasers bouncing harmlessly off space debris. By the time they emerged on the other side, the enemy ships were gone. Liara sank into her seat, exhausted but exhilarated. I didn't think I could do it." Marcus clapped her on the shoulder. "See? You just did. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." For the first time, Liara felt something other than fear or exhaustion. She felt capable. Her abilities, her instincts, her knowledge, her intuition were valuable. Humans, Marcus in particular, recognized that. Maybe being abandoned by her people had been a terrible thing, but it had also forced her to discover what she could truly do. As they resumed their course through the unknown regions of space, Liara began to ask questions. "Captain Marcus, do you ever wonder why humans survive in galaxy? Against the odds, against predators, against enemies, we aliens often think humans are weak, but somehow you endure." Marcus chuckled. "Survival isn't about strength alone. It's about adaptability, curiosity, and sometimes luck. And humans, stubborn as we are, never give up. We find ways, even when everything seems against us." Liara considered his words. Adaptability, that was something she had learned from her struggles. She had adapted to survive the cliffs, the storms, and the predator. Maybe humans and Valari were not so different after all, both relying on cunning, courage, and resilience. Hours passed in this tentative camaraderie. They shared stories of their respective worlds. Liara spoke of the Valari, its rigid hierarchy, its unforgiving traditions, the strength of its warriors. Marcus spoke of Earth, of humanity's resilience, its flaws, and its occasional brilliance. They laughed softly at differences, marveled at similarities, and in the shared stories, an unexpected trust began to grow. But the calm did not last long. Liara's ship sensors picked up something unusual, a faint signal repeating in a pattern. She frowned. "Captain, someone is sending a message. It's not random. It's targeted at us." Marcus leaned over the console, analyzing it. "You're right. It's coming from your home system?" Liara's heart sank. "My people—" Marcus looked at her carefully. "You think they might come after you?" Liara nodded. "They tried to kill me once. If they discover I survived, they will try again. Humans may survive against odds, but the Valari, they will never forgive failure." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "Then we won't let that happen. Whatever they're planning, we'll be ready." Over the next days, the human and the alien worked together to understand the signal. It contained more than just threats. It included data about Liara herself. Her people had monitored her, studied her, and declared her unfit to survive. But buried in their messages was a note that caught Liara's attention. Her genetic condition, the very trait that had marked her as weak, was rare, extremely rare. It gave her an ability to survive environments other species could not. Liara's heart raced. She realized something profound. Her so-called weakness was actually her greatest strength. Her people had never understood her, never valued what she could truly do. And yet, Marcus had seen it, even if only instinctively. "You see," Marcus said softly, noticing her expression, "I told you your survival matters. And maybe you were meant for more than even you realize." Liara looked out at the stars, a mixture of fear and hope swirling inside her. Ahead lay unknown dangers, both from space and from her own people. But for the first time, she felt ready. She had a human ally, a ship, and a strength that even the Valari could not take away. The days turned into weeks. They navigated uncharted star systems, avoided hostile planets, and encountered strange phenomena: asteroid storms, rogue comets, and even signs of long-abandoned civilizations. Through every challenge, Liara learned more about humans, and Marcus learned more about her. Each problem they faced together strengthened their bond and taught them to rely on each other. And then one night, as Liara rested in the ship's cabin, she dreamed. She saw herself standing before her people, not as a weak outcast, but as a leader. The same people who had left her die now bowed before her, not out of fear, but out of respect. She woke with a start, heart pounding. Her destiny. Perhaps it was greater than she had ever imagined, but the dream also carried a warning. The Valari would not forgive. The galaxy was vast, but her enemies were relentless. Survival alone would not be enough. She would need courage, cleverness, and the trust she had begun to place in Marcus if she hoped to live to see her destiny fulfilled. Liara rose from her bunk, moving to the viewport. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, and the hum of the ship reminded her of one undeniable truth. She was no longer alone. And for the first time, that made all the difference. She turned to Marcus, who was quietly reviewing star charts. "We have to prepare," she said, her voice steady. "My people, they will come for me. And when they do, we cannot fail." Marcus nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "We won't. Together, we'll face whatever comes." Liara clenched her fists. The galaxy was wide, full of danger, but also full of possibilities. And she was ready to claim her place in it. Not as a weak outcast abandoned by her people, but as someone who had survived, grown, and discovered her true strength. For the first time in her life, Liara felt something she had never experienced on her home planet. Hope. And hope, she realized, could be more powerful than any weapon. The small moon hung like a pale pearl in the darkness of space as Liara and Marcus approached. Its surface was barren, scarred with craters and dotted with jagged rock formations. Sensors on the ship indicated signs of activity. a faint energy signature pulsating from beneath the surface. Marcus frowned. "This isn't just a base," he said, tapping the console. "Someone's hiding something here, and I'm guessing it's not friendly." Liara's violet eyes narrowed. "My people, they may have found out I survived. This may be their next attempt to remove me permanently." Marcus studied her, concern written across his face. "We need a plan. They're organized, well-equipped, and far more numerous than we are." Liara took a deep breath. She had been through storms, predators, and betrayal, but the thought of facing the Valari, who had once turned their backs on her, made her blood run cold. "Then we use what we have. Intelligence, strategy, and improvisation. They may be stronger, but humans, you have advantages they don't expect." Marcus smiled faintly. "I like that. Let's see what your advantage is." Valari warrior. The spacecraft descended carefully, keeping low to avoid detection. Marcus maneuvered between craters and rock spires, and Liara's sharp eyes scanned for threats. Finally, they landed in a hidden ravine where sensors showed minimal enemy activity. "Stay alert," Marcus said. "We don't know what's waiting for us." Liara nodded, adjusting her equipment. For the first time, she felt a strange mixture of anticipation and fear. The Valari had underestimated her once. She would not allow that mistake again. They moved cautiously across the moon's rocky terrain, Liara leading the way. Her knowledge of tactics and survival guided them through narrow crevices and jagged rocks. Marcus followed, his human adaptability allowing him to adjust to Liara's movements. Despite being from entirely different worlds, they moved as a team, instinctive, synchronized, and ready for the challenges ahead. The entrance to the base appeared as a jagged fissure in the rocks. Liara examined it carefully. "There's a security field," she whispered. "We can't go in the front. We'll be detected immediately. But there's a maintenance tunnel over there. It's narrow, but we can slip in unnoticed." Marcus studied the tunnel on his portable device. "Good thinking. Small spaces are perfect for improvisation. Humans love that." Together, they slipped into the tunnel, silent and careful. The air inside was cold and dry, carrying the faint hum of machinery. Liara led them through twists and turns, bypassing surveillance systems and automated defenses. Marcus marveled at her precision. Even a seasoned human operative might have struggled to navigate these corridors undetected. After what felt like hours, they reached the main control room. Through the reinforced window, Liara could see the Valari officers working over consoles, their expressions cold and unyielding. The sight of her people, so confident in their superiority, ignited a fire within her. "They don't know we're here," Liara whispered, "and that gives us the advantage." Marcus nodded. "Then let's make it count." Liara's plan was simple but risky. They would gather intelligence, record proof of the betrayal, and escape before the Valari realized they had been infiltrated. She activated a small device from her pack, a signal jammer designed to disrupt communications temporarily. Marcus set up a portable recorder to capture data from the main consoles. As they worked, alarms suddenly blared. Liara's heart raced. "They've detected something," she hissed. Marcus held up a hand. "Not us. The outer perimeter must have triggered." "Keep calm." Improvisation. Liara acted quickly. She used a maintenance ladder to access the ventilation shafts above the room. Marcus followed, and together they slid silently into the ducting. From above, they could see the Valari officers scrambling, trying to locate the intruders. Liara's hand shook slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline and the stakes of the moment. She had survived storms, predators, and betrayal, but now she faced her people directly. She felt the weight of all those who had doubted her. And yet beside her, Marcus remained calm and steady, a human who thrived in improvisation, who saw solutions where others saw problems. "Ready?" Marcus whispered. Liara nodded. "Always." They dropped silently into a secondary control hub. Liara accessed the consoles, bypassing security protocols with surprising skill. Within minutes, they had captured detailed records of the Valari's plan to eliminate her permanently. The data included coordinates, strategies, and even lists of the soldiers assigned to the task. "This is more than proof," Liara said, her voice steady. "This is evidence that they would rather see me dead than understand what I am." Marcus studied the records. You've got everything here. This can be used to protect you and expose them if needed. Now, we need an exit strategy. Liara's mind raced. Escape would not be easy. The Valari were organized, and reinforcements would arrive soon. She looked at Marcus. We need to create a diversion. Something big enough to draw them away from us, but subtle enough that it doesn't destroy the data. Marcus grinned. I have a few ideas. Using the tools available, Marcus rigged several energy conduits to overload briefly, creating sparks and alarms throughout the base. Liara monitored the Valari officers' movements, ensuring they were drawn to false threats while keeping the path clear for their escape. The plan worked. Soldiers rushed toward the disturbances, leaving the corridors less guarded. Liara and Marcus slipped through the shadows, moving toward their spacecraft. Just as they were about to exit, a Valari officer rounded the corner, weapon raised. Liara reacted instantly, knocking the officer back with a quick strike. Marcus tackled another attempting to cut them off. Despite being outnumbered, their teamwork allowed them to fight efficiently. Liara's speed and precision complemented Marcus' raw human strength and quick improvisation. They reached the ship, climbing aboard as Valari reinforcements began pouring into the area. Liara secured the hatch, and Marcus fired up the engines. With a roar, the ship lifted off, leaving the moon's surface behind. Liara sank into her seat, breathing heavily. That was close. Marcus chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. Clothes doesn't even begin to cover it. But we made it, and you were incredible. Liara shook her head, a small smile forming. I couldn't have done it without you. Your ideas, your thinking. Humans really are unpredictable. Marcus shrugged. That's part of the charm. Improvisation is our specialty. For a moment, they sat in silence, the hum of the ship filling the cabin. Liara allowed herself a rare moment of relief. They had escaped, captured proof of betrayal, and survived against superior forces. But the danger was far from over. Liara turned to Marcus, her expression serious. This is only the beginning. My people, they will not stop. They may even come after us directly now. We need allies. We need a plan. Marcus nodded, agreed, but we have something they don't expect. You're not just surviving. You're learning, adapting, and growing stronger. And humans, we're good at turning the impossible into possible. Liara felt a sense of determination rising within her. For the first time, she realized that she did not need to live up to the expectations of her people. She had survived abandonment, betrayal, and danger. Now, she could define her own destiny. As they set course for a distant neutral sector of the galaxy, Liara and Marcus reviewed the captured data. Maps, strategy reports, and personnel files all painted a picture of the Valari's intentions. They had underestimated her, just as her people always had. But now the tide was turning. This information, it can save lives, Liara said quietly. Not just mine. Maybe even others who've been cast aside. Marcus nodded. And we'll make sure it does. Together. Liara allowed herself a small smile. Trusting a human had been difficult. But Marcus had proven himself reliable, courageous, and smart. Perhaps humans were not the chaotic, weak beings of Valari had made them out to be. Perhaps humans, with their cleverness and adaptability, were the allies she had needed all along. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to their resolve. Liara knew the Valari would not give up easily, but for the first time, she felt confident. They had the advantage now. The element of surprise, knowledge, and a human ally who could turn impossible situations into opportunities. And that advantage, she realized, might just be enough to tip the scales in her favor. The neutral space station floated silently against the black canvas of the galaxy, lights flickering in the distance like tiny stars. Liara and Marcus docked the ship in a secluded hangar, careful to avoid drawing attention. The station was a hub for traders, explorers, and those seeking safety from the endless conflicts of the galaxy. It was here that they would prepare, gather allies, and confront the threat that had haunted Liara since her own people had left her to die. Liara stepped onto the station, her claws clicking lightly on the metal floor. She looked around at the crowd of aliens, humans, and other species moving through the corridors. The diversity was overwhelming, but it reminded her of one undeniable truth. Strength came in many forms, And sometimes the greatest power lay not in muscles or weapons, but in courage, determination, and alliances. Marcus followed, keeping a careful watch. "You ready for this?" he asked quietly. Liara met his gaze. "I have to be. My people won't forgive what I've done. They'll see me as a traitor, a failure. But I am neither. I survived. I adapted. I grew stronger. And now I will show them who I really am." They made their way to a secure communications hub. Marcus set up the data they had stolen from the Valari base, broadcasting it to trusted channels and neutral authorities. Liara watched his reports confirm what she already knew. Her people had planned her elimination. The evidence was undeniable. "You've done more than just survive," Marcus said softly. "You've changed the game." Liara nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. This confrontation was inevitable. She would have to face the Valari directly, stand before the council that had once condemned her, and prove that she was not weak. She had survived storms, predators, and betrayal, but this would test her in a different way, testing her spirit, intelligence, and courage against her own kind. Hours later, a message arrived, a direct transmission from the Valari High Council. Liara's heart tightened as she read the words. "Return immediately. You are to surrender, or the consequences will be irreversible. Disobedience is not tolerated." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They're threatening you, but you got the proof now. You've got allies. You got options." Liara swallowed hard. "It's not just about survival anymore. It's about making them see me, making them understand that I am not what they think I am. And if they refuse, then they will see the consequences." The next day, Liara and Marcus arrived near the Valari homeworld aboard the human ship. Its massive city stretched across the planet, glowing with technological marvels that reflected centuries of discipline and hierarchy. Liara's stomach twisted with a mixture of fear, anger, and determination. Her people had abandoned her, but she was no longer alone, and she was no longer powerless. They entered the planetary orbit, bypassing standard communications and security measures. Liara activated a secure channel, sending a message directly to the High Council. The message included the stolen data, along with her statement. "I am Liara. You left me to die. You underestimated me. Now I am here. I have survived, and I am not weak. Judge me if you must, but know this. My destiny is my own, and I will not be silenced or destroyed." Moments later, the council responded, summoning her to a tribunal. The chamber was enormous, its walls lined with statues of past warriors. The council members sat in high seats, their expressions cold, unyielding, and judgmental. Liara's claws dug into the floor as she stepped forward, her body tense, but her mind clear. "Liara of the Valari," one council member began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You were found guilty of weakness. You failed your trials. You were abandoned for a reason. Explain yourself." Liara took a deep breath. "I was abandoned because of fear. Fear that I am different. Fear that I can survive what you cannot understand. You called me weak, but you were wrong. I survived storms, predators, betrayal, and I did so because I did not rely on your definitions of strength. I relied on my intelligence, my courage, and on the help of one human who believed in me." A murmur rippled through the council. Mentioning a human ally was considered taboo. Humans were outsiders, unpredictable and untrustworthy in their eyes. But Liara continued, "I have proof of your intentions. You planned my death, thinking it would remove me from your path. But I am here and I will not be silenced. You must acknowledge that strength comes in many forms. You must see that your fear blinded you to the truth about me." The council fell silent. They examined the records, the strategies, and the undeniable evidence. Their faces, once cold and certain, now reflected shock, disbelief, and hesitation. One member spoke, voice trembling slightly. "This cannot be ignored. You survived beyond expectation. You possessed abilities we did not recognize." Liara straightened, feeling a surge of confidence. "Exactly. You underestimated me. But I have proven that survival, courage, and intelligence are worth more than blind adherence to outdated rules." Marcus stood beside her, offering quiet support. His human ingenuity and courage had given them the advantage. Together, they had turned the impossible into the possible. Liara realized then that humans were not only capable of bravery, but of changing the course of events in ways even the Valari could not anticipate. The council deliberated, their murmurs filling the chamber. Finally, the lead member spoke. Liara, your survival, your courage, and your skills are undeniable. You are not weak. You are exceptional. You may return, but under your terms. Your destiny is yours to claim. Liara exhaled, a mixture of relief and triumph flooding through her. She had faced her people, survived their judgment, and emerged stronger. But more than that, she had realized that strength was not defined by others. It was defined by one's actions, choices, and courage to face the unknown. Later, aboard the ship with Marcus, Liara gazed out at the galaxy. I never thought I would feel free, she said softly. Marcus smiled. Freedom isn't given. It's taken, earned, and sometimes fought for. And you've done all of that. Liara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. She could return to her people as a leader, reform their ways, or she could chart her own course among the stars, forging alliances with humans and others who value courage and intelligence. What now? Marcus asked. Liara looked at him, determination in her eyes. Now, I claim my destiny. I survived betrayal, danger, and doubt, and now I decide my path. With allies I trust and strength I never knew I had, I will make a difference, not just for me, but for those who cannot fight for themselves. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's make it happen. As their ship left the Valari homeworld behind, Liara felt a profound sense of purpose. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and opportunities. She had been left to die by her own people, saved by a human, and had discovered that her destiny was greater than she had ever imagined. For the first time in her life, Liara was not defined by her people's fear, her own doubts, or the limitations they had placed on her. She was defined by her courage, her choices, and the trust she had learned to place in those who saw her true worth. And as stars stretched endlessly before them, Liara realized one undeniable truth. Survival was not enough. True greatness came from facing the impossible, trusting in oneself, and sometimes trusting in the unexpected courage of others. With Marcus at her side, Liara felt ready to face whatever the galaxy could throw at her. She had survived storms, predators, betrayal, and even the judgment of her own people. Now she would thrive. She would lead. She would carve a destiny that was truly hers. And in doing so, she would prove that courage, intelligence, and compassion, qualities that humans had shown her, could light a path even in the darkest reaches of the universe. Liara smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the stars outside. The galaxy awaited, full of danger, wonder, and possibilities. She had survived the impossible, and now she would shape the future, not just for herself, but for all those who dare to dream beyond fear. For the first time, she was not just surviving, she was living, and she was unstoppable.